Good morning, and welcome to my podcast. Today, just before I go to church today, um, I'm at church. I'm going to be talking about the Lord's Supper, communion, and you're very well. And I've already posted that on my Substack, and I'll put the Substack at the bottom of this podcast post. So if you want to read it, and then you can see that. But I'm not going to be discussing that today. I really want to continue my podcast on Psalm 23. And today I want to look at the verse 4, which says, "Even though I walk through the darkest valley, I will fear no evil, for you are with me, your rod and your staff, they comfort me." Let me repeat that once more. Even though I walk through the darkest valley, I will fear no evil, for you are with me, your rod and your staff, they comfort me. We must all face it. At some point, we will hit the road, the end of the road. We cannot escape it. As other translations phrase it, we will all walk through the darkest valley, or the valley of the shadow of death. We all have parents and loved ones, and at some point they will pass away. Personally, my father died 25 years ago, and my mother passed away just last year at the age of 95. The one thing is certain: we will all traverse through the darkest valley, or the valley of the shadow of death, at some point in our lives. Of course, the darkest valley does not mean to be actual death. It can be something different. Job certainly faced the darkest valley when death came calling. In a brief span of time, he lost all his children and servants. His property was devastated, and his livestock was taken. Life was so bleak that he questioned the purpose of his own existence. Naomi, who lost her husband and her 2 sons, said to her neighbors, "Don't call me Naomi, call me Mara, because the Almighty has made my life very bitter." Her very life, her very existence had been shattered, and the death of her loved ones now embittered her. Even Jesus wept upon seeing his friends Mary and Martha in great distress when Lazarus had died. But as I said, you don't need to experience death to be walking through the darkest valley. As foster carers, my wife and I cared for children in the care system. When the children left our homes, they did not die, but they were no longer with us. I can remember one occasion when I felt I was walking through the darkest valley, not due to death, but because one child had left my home. At one time, I was sitting at my desk at work, unable to concentrate because I was so overwhelmed by the loss of the child. You see, there are other traumatic experiences. Losing your job and being unable to pay your mortgage. This results in you losing your home, which is a devastating situation. Being informed that your spouse has been unfaithful to you and wishes to divorce you will have a profound effect on the family. Was it this last year? I can't remember last year, this year. I think it was this year. The residents of Los Angeles had lost everything due to the recent fires. And in Florida, Georgia, and North Carolina, they faced hurricanes. They faced 2 hurricanes in very close timescales together. And I know I've spoken to some, and they are still having to go through the reconstruction of their homes because of these hurricanes. In Kenya and other African countries, many churches operate orphanages to assist children who have lost their parents to violence. The problem with a valley is that there's no easy way to escape it. The mountains are too high on either side to cross, and we have no choice but to traverse, to walk through the valley to reach its end. In the book of Genesis, we encounter a young man named Joseph. Oh, he was a really kind of an obnoxious character. He was so unpleasant to his brothers that his brothers cast him into a pit, and would you believe it, they sold him into slavery. To make matters worse, he was falsely accused of sexually assaulting his master's wife and imprisoned. How much worse could it get for this man Joseph? He was an innocent. He was obnoxious, but he was innocent. But he was put into a life of slavery. He was falsely accused, and he was imprisoned. That was a really dark moment for Joseph. But the key thing to this is that we are not alone in these dark experiences. We're not alone. Yes, of course, Joseph felt alone when he was in the pit. He felt alone when he was a slave. He felt alone when he was in prison. But the truth is that he was not alone. God was with him. Looking back at the previous verses in Psalm 23, we see that he leads me beside quiet waters. He guides me in the path of righteousness. And so God is there leading and guiding David. God was there leading and guiding David. And so we can say, with regard to Joseph, God was there beside Joseph. At no point was Joseph alone. And David himself realizes when he wrote this psalm. And Isaiah, when he wrote the book of Isaiah, he says, "For I am the Lord your God, who takes hold of your right hand and says, 'Do not fear, I will help you.'" Let me repeat that. That's great. That's great news, isn't it? God is saying, "For I am the Lord your God, who takes hold of your right hand and says to you, 'Do not fear, for I will help you.'" And so, as we go through the darkest valley, remember that not only are we not alone, but God is with us, aiding us and sustaining us. You know, it wasn't God's will for Joseph to be sold into slavery. It was not God's will for Joseph to be imprisoned, but God permitted these events to unfold so that he could use Joseph. You see, Joseph became the prime minister of Egypt, second only to Pharaoh. He saved the country of Egypt from famine, and Joseph brought his own family from Canaan to Egypt, where they resettled. They left the famine-stricken country and moved to an area that was the very best area for arable farming in Egypt. They moved from a famine district country to the very best area for arable farming. At the height of this famine, Joseph's family were safe. And so let me reiterate this for you. If you are traversing the darkest valley today, and we all go through darkest valleys, know that you are not alone. God is with you. The marvelous things about valleys is that eventually they come to an end and the light of God will shine upon you. Okay, well, God bless you. I'm going to probably post this after church. So have a great day. God bless you. Bye-bye.